The story opens with the male narrator, a 25-year-old artist working in a quiet, sunlit city cafe. His world is routine, sketching strangers, sipping bitter coffee, and listening to the low hum of conversation. But something today feels different. Through the large windows, he notices her, a woman in her early 40s, poised yet relaxed, entering the cafe with a grace that draws the eye without demanding attention. There's an effortless elegance in the way her hair catches the sunlight, in the soft confidence of her movements. She carries an air of quiet mystery, a subtle magnetism that hints at layers beneath her calm exterior. The emotional goal here is to immerse the audience in the slow recognition of attraction, without words yet. Focus on internal observation. The male narrator notices the curve of her smile as she greets the barista, the slight hesitation in her fingers as she tucks a strand of hair behind her ear, the warmth in her gaze as it briefly meets his across the room. These small sensory details, visual, auditory, tactile imagination, should pull viewers into his perspective, letting them feel the magnetic pull before anything is said. Narratively, this part should establish the age gap subtly, not through exposition, but through contrast in demeanor and life experience. While he is tentative, observing, caught between curiosity and self-consciousness, she exudes calm self-assurance and subtle warmth. She orders her coffee with a quiet confidence that suggests she's seen life in a way he hasn't yet. And in that simple act, the first emotional tension is born. Admiration mixed with a touch of awe, and the unspoken question of whether he could ever bridge that worldliness. Physically, the story begins to plant non-sexual, sensory touches of connection. Perhaps she brushes past him on the way to her table, and he feels the brief, warm brush of her sleeve. His heartbeat quickens, a detail the audience can feel through his narration. He notices the faint scent of her perfume, soft, understated, almost comforting, and it lingers as she moves past, leaving him quietly aware of her presence. These are small moments, almost imperceptible, but they set the tone for intimacy without overt action. Emotionally, Keynote 1 should hint at internal conflict. He wonders why he feels drawn to someone so experienced, so assured, while questioning whether such a connection is even appropriate. She, on the other hand, might glance in his direction with curiosity, noticing his observant nature, the way he watches without intruding, an instinctive recognition of shared sensitivity. The atmosphere is warm, slightly hushed, with sunlight streaming through windows, the aroma of coffee blending with soft background chatter. Each sensory element grounds the audience in the moment, while the slow, lingering glances build anticipation. By the end of this keynote, the audience should feel the first quiet spark of forbidden attraction, the tension of age gap dynamics, and the subtle promise of emotional intimacy, setting the stage for a story that moves slowly but deliberately toward deep connection. After the initial, almost imperceptible encounter in the cafe, the story moves forward with the male narrator noticing her in another, slightly more personal context, a local art exhibit he frequents. He's drawn to the quiet charm of her presence again, this time surrounded by abstract paintings and soft classical music drifting through the gallery. The sensory environment is key. The cool scent of paint and varnish, the echo of footsteps on polished wood floors, the faint rustle of paper brochures. All these details heighten the intimacy of the setting, allowing the audience to feel as if they're standing beside him, watching her quietly appreciate the artwork. The emotional goal of this part is to transition from distant admiration to cautious interaction. He finally finds an excuse to speak when he notices her lingering in front of a painting that captivates him as well. Their first conversation is tentative, polite, and layered with subtext. His voice carries a mix of nervous energy and earnest curiosity, while hers is calm, measured, yet warm, like sunlight filtering through leaves. The narrative should linger on these small details. The way she tilts her head slightly when considering his comment, how her lips curve in a quiet smile, or how her eyes reflect the gallery lights. giving him a momentary sense of connection that feels almost sacred. Physically, the story begins introducing subtle, safe touches that convey growing comfort. Perhaps when he gestures toward a painting, their hands brush lightly for a moment. An accidental but lingering contact that leaves a quiet warmth spreading through him. These touches should be described with care. The texture of her sleeve, the softness of her skin, the fleeting heartbeat he notices in that small, shared space. It's not romance for the sake of romance. It's the tactile proof of human connection that builds tension slowly and naturally. This keynote should also develop internal conflict. He is increasingly aware of the age gap, not as a limitation, but as a weight of experience and life perspective that both excites and intimidates him. He wonders if his feelings are appropriate or if he is misreading the warmth of her demeanor. She, meanwhile, senses his sincerity and quiet nervousness, perhaps even feels a subtle pull toward his earnestness and the vulnerability he doesn't attempt to hide. Here, the audience should begin to understand that emotional depth, rather than physical attraction alone, is the glue of their connection. Narratively, Keynote 2 establishes a shared emotional space. Mutual curiosity, gentle humor, and the first hints of understanding each other's inner lives. Conversations are layered. On the surface, they discuss art, but underneath, there's an unspoken recognition of shared solitude, ambition, or longing. This duality encourages the audience to read between the lines and feel the tension of attraction growing without overt gestures. The scene should end on a subtle, memorable note. Perhaps she laughs softly at a shy joke he makes, and he catches the warmth in her eyes, feeling an unexpected rush of intimacy. The lingering gaze as she turns to leave cements the slow-burn momentum, leaving the audience eager for their next meeting, aware of the quiet emotional stakes forming between them. By this point in the story, the male narrator and the older woman have met a few times in casual, public settings, the cafe, the art gallery, but now the story shifts to moments of quiet, personal vulnerability that deepen their connection. Perhaps he volunteers to help her carry a small stack of books from a boutique bookstore to her car, where they meet by chance during a city walk on a rainy afternoon. The goal of this keynote is to build emotional intimacy through shared vulnerability, giving the audience a sense of trust slowly forming between them. The scene is rich in sensory details. The soft patter of rain on umbrellas, the faint scent of wet pavement mixed with her subtle perfume, the warmth of a shared scarf or coat as they navigate puddles. Each detail is a vehicle for closeness. Her hand brushing against his as they adjust the coat, the way his shoulder feels unexpectedly steady under hers, the quiet comfort of proximity in a public space. These small, tactile moments convey more than words ever could, reinforcing the audience's sense that their connection is real and emotionally charged, yet perfectly safe for YouTube storytelling. Emotionally, this keynote focuses on internal conflicts and tentative honesty. The male narrator notices hints of melancholy in her expressions. Perhaps a fleeting shadow crosses her eyes when she mentions a personal story, or her smile falters for a heartbeat before regaining composure. He senses a depth of experience in her life that contrasts with his youthful uncertainty, and it both intrigues and humbles him. He struggles internally, wondering how to offer support without overstepping, how to show care without seeming naive or intrusive. This internal dialogue gives the audience a window into his sincerity, making him relatable and sympathetic. Meanwhile, she begins to show subtle cracks in her emotional armor. She may share a small personal anecdote, a past disappointment, a quiet regret, or a fleeting memory that hints at loneliness. Her words are measured, yet the warmth in her eyes and the occasional hesitancy in her voice communicate that she is testing the waters, exploring whether he is someone trustworthy. For the audience, this creates a gentle tension. The slow unveiling of emotional layers is as gripping as any dramatic plot twist. Physically, Keynote 3 continues to emphasize non-sexual, meaningful touches. Perhaps he steadies her hand as she reaches for a wet doorknob, or she brushes a stray raindrop from his hair. These small gestures linger in description. The softness of her fingers, the brief warmth radiating from her touch, the subtle shiver of awareness that runs through him. Such moments communicate intimacy and desire without crossing boundaries, perfectly suited for a slow-burn narrative aimed at YouTube viewers. The narrative arc of this keynote peaks in a quiet, emotional crescendo. They share a moment of silence, perhaps sitting on a bench under an awning, rain dripping around them. He notices the rhythm of her breathing, the way her presence feels steadying, and she senses his attentive care. Neither speaks immediately, yet their connection deepens, leaving both characters and the audience with a resonant sense of anticipation. By the end of Keynote 3, the audience should feel that the relationship is evolving from curiosity to genuine emotional investment, that the age gap dynamic adds richness rather than barrier, and that the subtle tension between them is building naturally toward the next stage of closeness. By this stage, the male narrator and the older woman have spent more time together in shared, meaningful spaces. Their encounters are no longer purely coincidental. There's a growing rhythm to their interactions, a subtle expectation that each meeting may reveal more than the last. In Keynote 4, the story shifts toward emotional confession and deepening vulnerability, where both characters begin to acknowledge the connection forming between them. The setting is intimate yet public, a quiet park at dusk, the soft amber glow of street lamps reflecting off wet leaves after a brief rain, or a cozy corner of a local cafe with warm lighting and muted chatter. Sensory detail is paramount. The crisp autumn air brushing their cheeks, the faint scent of her perfume mingling with the earthy smell of damp leaves, the warmth of a shared scarf, or the slight brush of their arms as they walk side by side. Each sensory note reinforces emotional closeness, allowing the audience to feel the growing tension as naturally as if they were present. Emotionally, this keynote explores tentative honesty and the stirrings of desire. The male narrator, usually reserved and introspective, finds himself sharing personal thoughts, a childhood memory, a fleeting fear, or a small ambition he rarely voices. He notices her attentiveness, the way she leans slightly toward him, her eyes soft and encouraging, yet tinged with a quiet curiosity. This small encouragement validates his vulnerability, giving viewers a sense of authenticity in their evolving bond. For her, the act of listening is intertwined with her own quiet confessions. Perhaps she hints at past regrets, career sacrifices, or moments of loneliness, allowing glimpses of her inner world without fully exposing herself. Her voice is calm, deliberate, and soothing, conveying experience and composure. Yet her body language, the subtle tilt of her head, the lingering glance, the brief touch of her hand on his arm, betrays a warmth she doesn't verbalize. These gestures communicate an unspoken intimacy, demonstrating that closeness isn't always about words, but about shared presence and subtle acknowledgement. Physical affection remains non-sexual, but charged with meaning. A hand brushing his sleeve, a momentary grip on his wrist as she steadies herself on uneven pavement, or a lingering touch as she passes him a warm coffee. All these details should be described with sensory richness. The warmth of her fingers, the pressure of a steadying hand, the faint heartbeat he notices when their hands linger. These small touches create a layered emotional texture that keeps the slow-burn romance compelling. Narratively, Keynote 4 is about crossing emotional thresholds. They begin to trust each other, to rely on each other's presence, and to sense that the bond between them is more than casual fascination. There is tension, yes, but it is balanced by mutual respect and care. The age gap adds a nuanced layer. The male narrator admires her worldly confidence, while she finds comfort and subtle delight in his sincerity and youthful attentiveness. By the end of this keynote, the audience should feel a deepening emotional intimacy. They sense that these two people from different stages of life are carefully navigating the delicate path from admiration and curiosity to genuine emotional attachment. The subtle gestures, shared confessions, and quiet warmth set the stage for the inevitable tension that will soon reach a peak, keeping viewers fully invested in their story. By this point, the male narrator and the older woman have developed a rhythm of shared moments, quiet confessions, and subtle touches that hint at a deeper connection. Keynote 5 is where the story reaches its emotional peak, a point of heightened tension where unspoken desires, doubts, and fears collide. The audience should feel the full weight of anticipation, sensing that something transformative is imminent. The setting plays a crucial role in amplifying emotional stakes. Perhaps they meet during an evening stroll along a tree-lined boulevard, the street lamps casting golden reflections on damp pavement, or in a quiet apartment while preparing tea, the soft clink of cups echoing in the warm, lamp-lit room. The sensory details anchor viewers in the intimacy of the moment, the crisp night air brushing against their faces, the lingering aroma of her perfume mingling with the subtle scent of brewed tea, the warmth radiating from their close proximity. Each element heightens awareness, making every gesture, glance, and pause charged with unspoken meaning. Emotionally, this keynote emphasizes internal conflict and hesitation. The male narrator is acutely aware of the age gap, not as a mere number, but as a tangible barrier in experience, expectations, and social perception. He feels a magnetic pull toward her, yet hesitates, questioning the appropriateness of his emotions. The audience should sense his internal debate, admiration versus self-doubt, desire versus restraint. This internal dialogue creates a layered, relatable tension, drawing viewers deeper into his perspective. The older woman mirrors this hesitation in her own way. She is confident, worldly, and composed, yet there is a vulnerability that surfaces in private moments. Perhaps she lingers in a doorway after he leaves, fingertips brushing the wood, thinking about his sincerity and the subtle joy she feels in his presence. Or she hesitates before speaking, aware that her feelings are stirring in a direction that defies easy resolution. These moments convey emotional depth without needing overt dialogue, showing the audience that attraction is as much about shared understanding and quiet care as it is about words or gestures. Physical affection continues to convey intimacy without crossing boundaries. A hand brushing against his arm during a conversation, a gentle touch on the shoulder as reassurance, or their knees accidentally touching as they sit side by side. Each detail is described in a sensory-rich way. The warmth of contact, the subtle heartbeat they sense in one another, the fleeting shiver of awareness that signals emotional closeness. These small, deliberate touches are the language of slow-burn romance, communicating connection and desire while remaining YouTube safe. Narratively, Keynote 5 is about heightened anticipation and near confession. Both characters are aware of the emotional tension, yet neither fully acts on it, creating a suspended moment that keeps viewers on edge. They are drawn to each other, exploring boundaries of trust and vulnerability, testing the strength of their connection. The age gap dynamic adds richness here. His youthful earnestness contrasts with her mature restraint, making every interaction layered and compelling. By the end of this keynote, the audience should feel the story teetering on the edge of emotional resolution, emotionally invested in the character's next step. The tension is palpable, the connection undeniable, and the slow-burn intimacy is primed to move toward warmth, comfort, and mutual acknowledgement in the subsequent parts of the story. By now, the male narrator and the older woman have navigated subtle attraction, emotional vulnerability, and the height of hesitation. Keynote 6 marks the turning point from tension to warmth, where both characters begin to embrace their feelings, allowing the slow-burn romance to blossom into genuine closeness. The audience should feel the tension of previous encounters give way to comfort, trust, and tender connection. The setting emphasizes intimacy and serenity. A quiet evening at a small riverside cafe, the golden glow of lanterns reflecting off the water, or a sunlit library nook where they share whispered observations over books. Sensory richness is key. The faint scent of her perfume mingling with the aroma of fresh coffee, The warmth of a shared blanket or scarf as they sit close, and the subtle brush of hair across a shoulder. Every detail is designed to immerse viewers, letting them experience the quiet intensity of the moment alongside the characters. Emotionally, this keynote focuses on mutual acknowledgement and gentle courage. The male narrator senses that hesitation has softened. He recognizes that the connection he felt from the very first glance is real and shared. There is a quiet thrill in their closeness, a steady heartbeat as he listens to her laugh, a warmth spreading through his chest as she leans toward him while reading aloud from a book. His internal monologue reflects both relief and amazement, a recognition that emotional honesty is liberating and beautiful. For the older woman, Keynote 6 is about allowing herself to be fully present. She relaxes her composed exterior, permitting warmth, amusement, and subtle longing to shine through. Perhaps she touches his hand lightly while explaining a story, or rests her cheek momentarily against his shoulder during a shared laugh. These small gestures, lingering touches, soft glances, the quiet steadiness of proximity, signal emotional intimacy without the need for words. The audience can feel that these interactions are the culmination of trust, vulnerability, and mutual care. Physical affection remains tender and safe, perfectly aligned with the slow burn aesthetic. A hand on the back of a chair, a fleeting brush of fingers, or a gentle shoulder squeeze is described in sensory-rich detail. The warmth of her hand, the pressure of a steadying touch, the faint quickening of his pulse. These intimate gestures convey desire and connection subtly, enhancing emotional resonance without crossing boundaries. Narratively, this keynote emphasizes emotional payoff. The pair are no longer testing boundaries or hesitating. They exist comfortably in each other's presence, sharing small, meaningful moments that communicate care, admiration, and trust. Dialogue is gentle and human, punctuated with laughter, quiet observations, and pauses that let the audience sense the depth of connection. The age gap dynamic continues to enrich the story. The contrast between his youthful enthusiasm and her mature composure now feels like balance rather than barrier. By the end of Keynote 6, the audience should feel a soothing, satisfying warmth. The tension of prior keynotes has transformed into intimacy, affection, and shared emotional space. The slow burn has reached a tender, believable apex, preparing viewers for the final part, where the story will conclude with emotional fulfillment, closure, and a sense of completeness. By the final part of the story, the male narrator and the older woman have navigated hesitation, vulnerability, and emotional tension, arriving at a place of trust, warmth, and mutual understanding. Keynote 7 is about resolution, emotional fulfillment, and the quiet celebration of connection, leaving the audience satisfied while maintaining the subtle, slow-burn tone that has defined the narrative. The setting is intimate, familiar, and comforting. A quiet evening in her cozy apartment with soft golden lighting, or a sun-drenched park bench where they first shared a meaningful conversation. The sensory details anchor the audience. The gentle hum of a city settling into night, the faint scent of her favorite tea lingering in the air, the warmth of a shared blanket, or the soft weight of his hand resting atop hers. Every sensory cue is deliberate, emphasizing the comfort and emotional safety they now provide each other. Emotionally, this keynote highlights full emotional openness and acceptance. The male narrator reflects on his journey. The initial fascination, the nervous hesitations, and the moments of vulnerability that led him here. He now sees her not only as captivating and confident, but as profoundly human, with strengths, quiet struggles, and beauty that goes far beyond appearance. He allows himself to be fully present, no longer held back by self-doubt or fear of judgment. For her, this moment is equally transformative. She recognizes the sincerity and constancy of his care, the way he has respected her boundaries while connecting with her emotionally. She allows herself to lean in fully, resting her hand on his arm, letting her shoulder brush against his, or simply meeting his gaze without reservation. The audience should feel the significance of these gestures. They are symbols of trust, intimacy, and a shared understanding that words alone cannot convey. Physical affection remains tender and YouTube-safe, emphasizing emotional depth, a gentle squeeze of the hand, a lingering touch on the forearm, or a soft cheek-to-cheek lean. Each movement is described with sensory richness. The warmth of her skin, the steady heartbeat he senses, the subtle shift in energy when their proximity deepens. These moments communicate unspoken love, reassurance, and mutual comfort, perfectly suited to a slow-burn romance where intimacy is emotional first, physical second. Narratively, Keynote 7 ties up all threads. Any doubts about the age gap, social expectations, or personal insecurities are resolved through mutual understanding and emotional honesty. Their interactions are now marked by relaxed laughter, quiet confidences, and the ease of companionship that comes from truly seeing one another. The story emphasizes that love is not about rushing or forcing passion, but about allowing connection to grow patiently, authentically, and respectfully. The ending scene is simple yet profound. They may walk side by side along a quiet street, their hands brushing naturally, or sit together on a balcony as the sun sets, sharing a moment of stillness. The audience is left with a sense of closure, warmth, and satisfaction. The slow burn journey, from the first glance, through hesitation and vulnerability, to genuine emotional intimacy, reaches its natural, heartfelt conclusion. By the end of Keynote 7, viewers should feel the complete arc of emotional growth and connection. The romance has been slow, deliberate, and deeply human, showing that love across differences, age, experience, or circumstance, can be tender, meaningful, and profoundly satisfying.